All right, what's up? It's Miss Pittman, aka Future.P. And I'm coming to you with another live TaeTalk. This is TaeTalk number 2. Episode 2 is talking about COVID privilege. So one of my colleagues, who is actually my high school band director, shout out to Miss Stubbins or Miss Laird now, she ran across an article that she saw on Facebook, and she was like, hey, look at this, you should read this. We might need to talk about this for the next episode for TaeTalk. And basically, in the article, the young lady is having a conversation with her, she's at the pool, socially distancing at the pool, just to get out the house. And so she is having a conversation with another parent. Two moms just having a conversation, talking about their kids. The conversation of COVID-19 and the reopening of schools comes up, and she gives her side of the story. So she's like, oh, well, I have a flexible job. I can work from home. I don't have a problem, doing virtual learning because my husband's a teacher. And so then the girl that she met at the pool, she is not in that situation at all. Her situation is she's the single mom. The only person that she is, the only person who's responsible for her kids is her. And then you have the fact that she's by herself. She's not near her family. So her family aren't able to help either in the event that she has to go back to work. She had lost her job because of COVID-19. She got laid off. So she was using she was trying to use and save what was left from the stimulus payment to pay for babysitters when she needed to find work. Or she was using her unemployment and the extra unemployment benefits that are going to be terminated at the end of this month if they're not reinstated. She was using those to deal with the situation that she had to find someone. So she would hire a high school babysitter for $10 an hour. So those are the vast different realities of what we have to face. And that's what I say when I'm talking about COVID privilege. So not even talking about the teacher aspect. I'll talk about the teacher aspect of that later. But as far as the parents are concerned, you have the haves and the have-nots in this situation. So you have parents who, you got 2-parent household, you're good. A parent can stay home. One of them has flexible hours, or one of them has flexible employability, so they can work from home. Or, everybody's working from home. They have that option, and they're able to facilitate, if needed, the learning that has to happen, because school has to go on, hopefully. And then you have the have-nots. And these are the people who are the single parent homes, or both parents are there, but they have to work 2 and 3 jobs to make ends meet because of society. So, I'm sorry, y'all. Parents are having to make the decision between whether or not they're gonna have food on the table, or whether or not they're gonna send their child to school in the fall face to face, even though In Georgia, cases are surging. In Cobb County, we are fifth fastest surge in coronavirus cases. Y'all, no parent should have to do that. No parent should have to make that choice. Why is it that they have to make that choice? Because their employer is too focused on making $1 than to allow more flexible leave requirements. Why are people so focused on the dollar that they're not realizing that this is not normal? This is an international pandemic. And as Americans, we are failing because of racist capitalism. And that's a thing. We'll talk about that later. And we're talking about how this is being perpetuated. We're talking about laws being made by people who have never had to use public education. Their children didn't grow up going to it. They probably didn't even go to it. And they probably went to an Ivy that's a private school. It's not a publicly funded institution. It's not a state institution. This is the problem. We're too busy focusing on the dollar that we're making people make life or death situations because we don't know anything about this virus. You have colleagues who have children who are trying to make the decision on what they're gonna do. What are they gonna do? Do I risk my child getting coronavirus because I have to go to work? These are the things that is just unacceptable. Our government is letting us just fend for ourselves. There's no leadership. And then you have teachers infighting as well. Why are we infighting? There are better solutions. There are better solutions than to have to send your child out to school just because you don't have anyone to look after them. We have to come together, and this is unacceptable. I don't accept Cobb County School Board's reopening. I don't accept it. There's better choices. There's better options. I hate crying. I've never cried on camera before, but I refuse to accept the fact that people think that we could just go back to status quo. We haven't had time. We haven't had time to plan. In Cobb County School District alone, we got the first set of reopening guidelines 2 days after they sent out a teacher survey. So you send out a teacher survey, but then 2 days later you send out the guidelines, and then you're getting pushback from the school board because we have people in there who are telling them that this is a problem. This is a problem. One of our Cobb County School District board members had COVID. He got COVID from a friend in a socially distanced visit outside. And his family wound up having it. He's experienced it. But yet and still people are so upset. Why are you mandating that our children wear masks? Well, if we're having to go back to school, why would we not? It's absolutely ridiculous. You have people who have no idea don't know anybody who's had COVID-19. But you have someone who's experienced it firsthand. And you're being selfish. I can't understand. I can't understand the logic and the selfishness. And that's another thing. The reason why we haven't flattened this curve is because we're selfish. As a country, Americans are thought of as being selfish, entitled, and spoiled. As the youngest country in the world, we're still spoiled. One of the youngest. And we're showing that. And we have people in leadership, again, who are not being responsible. They're being egotistical. And they're making policies without involving the voices of our stakeholders. You have teachers, you have parents, and you have students who have voices. How are you making policies about what I do when you've never done it? I don't understand. Going back to school face to face is ridiculous. And I have a video to show you exactly why. Money is the problem and the solution to this entire situation. And it's so bad. It's so bad. I just completely got off topic. I had a whole little script planned out. But anyways, so let me go back before we start getting forward into the next section. So thank you guys again for the first, for my first COVID, my first video, my first TaeTalk. I reached over 2,000 people and people are still sharing my first video. As you go through and you start speaking and you start speaking out and you start walking in your purpose, you're going to find that you have to make sure that you are steadfast in your truth, and also make sure that you do not, that you make sure that you are very concise and clear and direct with your language, because words hurt, absolutely. And you also have to make sure that if you aren't understanding something that someone says, you can't automatically get defensive, because maybe you just didn't understand. Maybe something was misconstrued. Maybe something was lost in translation. We have to be able to talk to each other, and we also have to be able to self-reflect and also own up if we did make a mistake. Because as I'm starting to grow in this social justice warrior, abolitionist teacher mindset, anti-racism mindset, I'm starting to see that I have some issues with prejudice and biases against my own people. I had some issues, with my own people. And you have to center yourself with that, and you have to get uncomfortable. And you have to sit in that uncomfortableness and understand why it is that you feel so uncomfortable. You're only going to begin to understand the real root of the problem once you self-reflect. You have to start with self first. So again, this whole issue of the haves and the have-nots, that's been the main thing of what's plaguing America's public education system today. As we stand right here, public education gets the shaft almost every year when it comes to state budget. Why? Because the people who are making these legislations do not serve or use, oh Lord, my hair, do not serve or use public education. It's expendable to them because they don't use it. We have to put people in office that represent us. If these people that we are electing are not showing up for the people that they represent, we have to vote them out. That means we have to vote during midterm elections. We have to vote during the regular presidential elections. And even then you have to realize the president really doesn't, he can't do too much without the backing of the Congress. And then if you have folks in the Congress who've had seats in the Congress for 7, 8 presidencies, you have that really old school thinking. And you wonder why white supremacy still exists. And you wonder why racist practices just permeate through all of the policies and laws that we have. We have to be more cognizant of what we're doing. And we can't just blindly vote either. We can't just blindly vote just based off of party. You're responsible for doing the You're responsible for doing the research. African Americans, we fought so hard for the right to vote. We fought so hard for the right to vote, not to exercise it. People were having to get paid, having to pay to vote because of racist poll taxes. People were having crosses put on their lawn because they saw them go out and vote or try to go out and vote. There were literacy tests that were blocking Black people from voting. We're taking for granted the privilege that so many of our, not even ancestors, because some of those people are still alive. They were in that fight. My mom was one of the first to integrate Jonesboro High School in Clayton County. My mom faced people spitting at her and calling her the N-word every day. My mom. Why are we still dealing with this? It's because of racism. It's systemic. You cannot sit here and turn a blind eye about what's going on in this world and not think that that's not the reason why we are in this shit show. Excuse me, I know, I cursed. Today. All of it. And now we're facing with the decision of whether or not to restart schools in person. Absolutely not. We can't afford it. We cannot afford it. The National the National Federation of Teachers estimated that it's going to cost $116.8 billion to outfit all of the schools all of the public schools in this nation with everything that they need to mitigate the possibility of spreading COVID-19. This is including PPE. This is including sneeze guards, hand sanitizers, and making sure they have ample soap and paper towels, and all of these extra things, as well as masks and gloves and all of these signs that go up on the wall and all of this stuff like this. $116.8 billion. In the CARES Act, they've only provided about $13 billion. So, $16.3 billion. They've only provided that much. So where's the other $100 billion going to come from? So again, you wind up having the haves and the have-nots, even in that situation. because you have the schools that don't need as much help because property taxes. Oh, guess what? Property taxes funding your schools, that's a racist practice. So just because a person lives in a specific zip code, they shouldn't deserve to have a school that's fully funded. Just because of their zip code, their child doesn't deserve to have an updated textbook or have technology. But you don't think systemic racism exists. But you're here to represent our people. I don't believe that we should be in schools on August 17th. I know other school districts have different timelines. I believe that we should have a comprehensive virtual learning that provides homeschool for children. Teachers have the opportunity to record and do their live streams from work. Teachers can be in their classrooms. They don't have to take anything home. It's there. We as adults are better equipped to mitigate and socially distance. I have absolutely no problem sitting in my office on a Zoom call, even though all of us are in the same building for a faculty meeting. That's more responsible. Meals would still be available because the school building itself would still be open. Special ed services, speech therapy, speech language therapy, occupational therapy, mental health services, social work services would all still be available by appointment, socially distanced, because the building would still be open. We can figure this out. Parents, we can figure this out. If you're having to go to work, we have to start talking to our neighbors. Somebody in that neighborhood wants to make $25 an hour, wants to make $15. If you get a high schooler to watch your kid, they gonna want to make $10 an hour to make sure that your baby is getting what they need. Our school boards also have to take to task that the things that they're putting out, these guides that they're putting out, you're not seeing all the views. You're not seeing all the points of views. There's so many holes. There's so many questions with reopening face-to-face. It's too big of a task to manage in the time that we have before we were supposed to start school. Before they pushed back the date, they were supposed to start school on August the 3rd. Do you really think the PPE that they ordered was going to be available? Do you really think all of the water fountains were going to be covered? Do you think the sneeze guards and X, Y, and Z, all of these things were going to be in place to actually open safely? And we still don't know how they're going to do this on the school bus. There's too many unknowns. Children should not be in the building, especially if they're not required to wear a mask. We don't know how this virus is moving. And now we're seeing in Florida, they've seen 11,000 kids are getting the coronavirus. Just imagine had we not broken out and shuttered when we did in March. Imagine. We don't have that much data on whether or not students are being susceptible to the virus, but we do know it's happening. You have countries overseas Hong Kong specifically, they've opened and had to close because of cases. They started spiking again, even though they had super regimented practices and cleaning practices and all their rows and socially distanced classrooms in the gym. We have to mitigate that whole entire situation by having the children be at home. But teachers, we have to also make sure that we are providing opportunities that make sense. We can't overload. We can't expect them to be on a computer for 7 hours a day. That's not feasible, and that's not research-based either. We can still have club meetings, depending on what our local guidelines say about sports. We can still have sports, but we have to be smart. We have to move smart. We have to innovate. And we can't think that things are just going to be status quo, because it can't be status quo anymore. So I proposed some research on my Facebook status, and I want to see what are the issues that are causing people to have to send their children to school. And also for teachers, I want to know why because some teachers want to be in person. I wanted to know why they feel that they need to be in person. I'm not here to debate you. I just want to know. I like to think and plan solutions and find compromises. And so the only way that we can do that is if we start to take emotion out of a thing and start thinking like researchers and start thinking like scientists. Because we're brilliant, but we're letting people who don't realize our brilliance tell us that we have to be somewhere because it has to be that way. You have your vice president saying, oh, kids got to go to school because they got to get fed because that's the only time they get fed. Well, if you remember, people got fed when we shuttered the schools. Those cafeteria workers were there nonstop, making things happen. Those bus drivers were at those bus stops putting that food out daily. So, no, our kids' needs are going to get met. We're going to make sure that their needs get met. Well, what about them socializing? They need to be able to play and run. They can still do that. These parks are still open. You just have to be smart. You have to be smart. There is no excuse for anyone to have to walk out and be in a building with hundreds, if not thousands of people and be trying to socially distance. Our schools are just not capable of making the arrangements, and the government's not gonna be giving us $116 billion to do it.
All right, so 3 ways money grows.
So I want to leave you with a little bit of an inspiration. I charge each and every one of you, if you're a teacher, if you're a parent, if you're a student, you're needing to use your voice at this time. You need to bombard those emails, bombard those Zoom calls, or if your school board is starting to go back in person but socially distanced, be at those meetings. I know I'm about to be at those meetings this upcoming week, and I'm hoping they let me speak. The letter that I've wrote to my superintendent and school board, as of right now, it's sitting at 4 pages long. since they, didn't ask us before they decided to put those rules out, I'm gonna put it right up in their face and let them know we can do this a better way, a more fiscally responsible way. We can bug and badger and guilt Comcast, AT&T, Google Fiber to give them kids that free Wi-Fi and internet. We can figure out through beneficiaries of tech companies how we can get these kids Chromebooks, how we can get these kids access to the library. We have to be smart. And I can't sit here and be idle and be waiting on somebody to give me lip service. And I damn sure ain't about to spend my money getting cleaning supplies and PPE that should be provided. That's madness. Teachers have had to break their backs to make ends meet when budgets get slashed every year. But you're already, one, asking me to risk my life when you're not giving me what you're giving the doctors and all the other medical professionals. And even they had to fight to get that stuff. I'm supposed to just be free from COVID-19 because I got a mask on? They got on hazmat suits. They got face shields. They got on goggles. They double glove. We're not essential, but you're making us go back with students in the building. I'm expendable. That's basically what you mean. I refuse to be expendable because without teachers, none of the other professions would exist. Teachers, we can't just sit by idle and wait for them to decide our fate for us. We have to make sure we look at all the angles. And you can't look at all the angles unless you bring more people to the table to have a conversation. You can't look down at the problem when the people who are facing the issue of your decision are standing on every side. We have to do better and take the time to figure it out together. There's a video from Dr. Bettina Love, my dear friend, Jasmine Fripp, who is the awesomely wonderful woman that she is and music equity advocate as well. She posted the video on her page from a recent abolitionist teaching seminar that if you haven't seen it, if somebody has the YouTube link, if y'all can put it in the comments for other people, you'll be able to see. But what she said, if you don't finish this video feeling renewed sense of purpose, you might not be alive, because she brought something out of me that I didn't even know was there. And so this is a little ghetto, but this is the little ghetto way that we're gonna do this. But here it is. Hold on. Here we go. So look, it's me, yay. All right.
But I selfishly want to ask just a few more things. I really want to hear you all talk about what just happened to our schools, because this would be an amazing conversation at any moment, but it's at this moment where a lot of schools, almost all, are shuttered, where the buildings are sitting empty, and school as we know it has been shattered. What have you been thinking of or learning in this coronavirus school shutdown? Like, what did you or we learn?
Sorry,
from
guys.
this?
You want to go, Bettina?
Okay.
I love what you gotta say.
So, I was floored at how when we shut down schools, how so much became possible. So we shut down schools, and in a matter of a month, we're done with standardized testing. Really? We've been fighting for that for decades, and now you're done with standardized testing? Okay, cool. You know what? Every kid get a laptop to go home. But just last week, those laptops, you couldn't take them out. I mean, they were like precious gold. Oh, you know what? Teachers, we need you. We're going to rely on your pedagogy and your ingenuity and your creativity during this time. Oh, so now we're a profession again. Parents, you're the number one thing we need right now. Oh, we need parents. Oh, tech companies giving out free internet. Oh, you can give out free internet? Now we got millions of, they played their hand. And we have to say, we're not going back. The superintendent of the state of Georgia, the state superintendent came out with this beautiful letter around mid-March. And he said, we want compassion over compliance. I said, wow. He said, we teachers, we want you to be more flexible. You're too rigid. This was in his letter. And all I'm saying is keep that same energy in 2020, 2021, 2022, and so on and so on and so on. Why did it take a pandemic to see the humanity in teaching?
Come on.
Why did it take a pandemic to see how extraordinary this job is?
Huh?
Why did it take a pandemic to see that we needed resources?
Speak, Doc.
Why did it take a pandemic for them to say, well, because of the pandemic, the gaps are going to be exacerbated? No shit. And so, I think the pandemic has shown us a hand that they were willing to play in crisis that they were never willing to play before. And now we have to say that we're not going back. The managing of inequalities, we're not going back. And we have to be clear about that as educators. That's what abolition is about. To say that what you thought was normal, that was not normal. Expelling kids, killing kids. I mean, we haven't had a school shooting. Woo.
Go
And
figure.
that got to a point where it was normal to report on school shootings. It was normal to talk about Black and brown children being expelled. It was normal to have police snatching and hurting and body slamming young girls in classrooms. That became normal. And we have to say enough is enough. And this pandemic has given us an opportunity to say that we're not going back. We got teachers now saying, I'm making curriculum for my students. That's right. You shouldn't have done that in the first place.
Right.
So we have to now take this moment, and when we do reopen schools, to say that same energy, that same creativity, that same ingenuity, that same trust that you gave parents, that same trust that you gave teachers, we want it back. We're not going back to what we had. We got to be clear about that. Because they played their hand. They played it too soon.
Yeah.
Okay, if y'all didn't catch the Holy Ghost, Dr. Bettina Love for Secretary of Education of this great United States, absolutely. Because if you don't feel convicted to make sure that you are making a difference as an educator, as a parent, we ain't got nothing to talk about, dude. Because I'm going to do what it do for my students regardless. And I know my friends going to make it do what it do for their students regardless. But I have a couple books that I wanted to show you guys that I'm looking at right now. that's helping me navigate the situation. So the book I'm reading right now is Stamped from the Beginning by Dr. Kendi. So that book gives you the whole lowdown of every issue of racism through history. He walks you straight through history, starting colonial times, pre Christopher Columbus discovering America, even though there were indigenous peoples here, but that's another TaeTalk. We'll talk about that. The other book that, Stamped from the Beginning, this specific edition is good for adults. They have a younger edition that was co-authored that would be great for young adults who are trying to get into anti-racist information. So you want to talk about race is another one. My principal and a couple of other of our colleagues are thinking about doing a book study on this. Another one I'm reading, The Color of Law. Richard Rothstein, this man right here. If you haven't heard him speak, I need you to go to YouTube right after this and Google, honey. He gonna lay it down. He gonna lay it all the way down about the racist practices, about redlining, property taxes, all of that stuff. How to be an anti-racist. This is the one that's really hot. It's really hot now. This one was on back order, but this one's a really hot take. Now, how to be an anti-racist is gonna leave a couple of us black folk real convicted, because some of the stuff in there, baby, you gonna be like, whoa, wait. You talking about me? How can I be? All right. For my allies, this book here, White Fragility, is a great book for you to start, especially if you're starting out in your journey to be anti-racist. Just understanding your implicit biases and things that you may have not known were inherently racist. You have a lot of different issues when it comes to people being racist. You have the overt racist. You have the people that you know are racist who do racist things and say racist things all the time. Then you have covert racists who they know they're racist, but they want to appear that they're not. And so they do and say these racist things, like micromanaging their black, like a white manager micromanaging their African-American workers, or saying things about their hair and, oh, why'd you wear your hair like that? That's not professional. And then you have the third level, which a lot of us fall guilty of. We do things like code switching to appease the majority. Black people do this all the time. That's racism. That's prejudice. We're code switching and code switching just means that you go from talking, as they say, slang, or the African-American vernacular, Ebonics basically, to the standard English. You make sure you pronounce all of your T's and, your phone voice, because that's the expectation, that's the standard. So we have to do some introspect, and that book will get you conflicted too. But it'll get you together. You'll start analyzing and realizing some of the things that you're doing that are perpetuating white supremacy. This is ongoing, but we have the power now. We have the power to make a difference. We have a power to break these chains of oppression. And it's amazing. It's powerful. I don't know if some of you feel it, but I feel that there's a change coming because we are just ready. We see the potential and we just have to do the work now. But I'm Future Doc P. If you're watching this from a recording after, because I just put this up, I'm not editing anything. That takes too much time. I appreciate you guys staying with me and listening to me rant. And I cried in public. I don't do that, but neither here nor there. Be passionate. Stay passionate. Stay understanding. Make your voice heard. I'm out. Maybe.